Keep it. And here we are for a Thursday morning edition of Dualistic Unity Raw, which at one point was Dualistic Unity Social, but now it's a short episode of Dualistic Unity Raw because, I mean, why the fuck not? We end up doing a social episode on Tuesdays now, usually just before the live call-in show or the roundtables. And so this is a short, punchy version of Raw where we just tackle shit and get into it. I just want to say off the top of my head that so many of the things that we emotionally react to day to day, so many of the things that hound us and haunt us and make us feel like life sucks are things that we are continuing to think about because somehow we think that thinking about them is fucking necessary. Like, if somebody is bothering you, if somebody's actions are bothering you, if somebody is not living up to your standards or not fulfilling your needs and all of that shit, and you're carrying it around with you all day long, you're going to work, you're talking to your friends, you're going about your life, but you're thinking to yourself, fuck that person. Why isn't that person doing that? This is the reason I'm unhappy. This is why this doesn't work for me. Fuck. And it just adds to your weight all the goddamn time. I just want to remind you, that's you doing that. That's not them. They don't have to have that much of an impact on you at all. You can live your fucking life. You can live your life and just go, right, they didn't. What am I going to do with now? Or you can carry that shit around with you all fucking day and blame someone else for it. And it'll never go away. And what's worse is that over the years, you'll pile it on with other shit about other people until you've got a litany of years of resent for petty shit that you never had to hold on to, and then you wonder why you're fucking miserable. Why you don't feel like anybody can connect with you. It's because you're not there with them. You're in this fictional world in your head where you're always the goddamn victim. You don't have to be. You can just let it go. There's no resolution to it. Understand, there's no resolution to all your fucking complaints, to all your petty issues with the world. There's no resolution. You can always have them, but you're the one that suffers. And not just you, the individual, but everything that you interact with because of what you're carrying. So just let it go. Because you can. Because people, things, situations don't have to have that much of an impact on you. They don't have to weigh you down. You don't have to let them. You can adjust. You can align. You can learn to dance with it. You don't have to hold on for a sense of safety that only puts you in further danger. That said, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. And this has been this sort of realization because it can go both ways with complaining about other people and complaining about yourself, And so with, when a situation happens, there's the ability to pin it on yourself or pin it on everyone else. And it's like pinning it on yourself is like, I don't know if it's like taking more responsibility than pinning it on other people, or at least taking responsibility for your actions as opposed to when you're putting it on everyone else. It's like you're not taking any responsibility for the situation at hand or for what's going on. But then and it goes with thinking about yourself. If you're pinning it on yourself, that can, then instigate a lot of anxiety. And either way, whether you're complaining about someone else or you're judging yourself, like judging yourself is kind of complaining about yourself. Like you do something and then you complain kind of that you did it that way. And I've never really thought about judging yourself as complaining about the way that you are. And like you were saying with judgment, like so much of those complaints can come back to maybe there's something that you're doing, but then it can swing so far to the other end that then all you're doing is judging yourself and complaining about yourself. So it's like whether you're thinking about yourself or you're thinking about everyone else and what you're doing wrong or what everyone else is doing wrong, it's like the X factor is always yourself. It's always your opinion, your perspective, your judgment that you just keep believing is true, is correct. Like those assumptions about yourself or about someone else, like you just keep believing that they're true and you're right. And it's like you were saying the other day with thoughts, like it's not really you thinking, it's your brain thinking. It's your brain having all the thoughts and trying to be sure of things. And so there's a there's a swing back and forth between thinking about yourself or thinking about other people and how they should change, but a lot of times that's just when you're not willing to look at what you can do in the situation, or you can just let go of your opinion of them doing something wrong, which then is going to help you relax a lot more. Like being convinced that someone's doing something incorrectly and then mulling over it and continuing to act upon that, there's a lot of tension there. And then if you're not willing to admit that the tension is coming from you, it's coming from this person that you're judging, it's just going to be this sort of vicious cycle until you sit with yourself for a little bit and maybe realize that, oh, I'm the one holding on to this. Cuz like to hold on to something, like you got to clench, like, and it's not just a physical clenching. Like to hold on to this bottle, I got to clench it. If I relax too much, it falls away. But it's the same mentally, to clench on to a perspective, to be convinced that you're doing something wrong or someone else is doing something wrong, takes a lot of tension and rigidity and conviction. And that's what maintains those points of view, allows those points of view to be maintained because you're continuing to clench. So as you relax and like physically relaxing, mentally relaxing, goes back to just being willing to be uncertain. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know that. And then, yeah, and then you can be a little bit more relaxed. And that's so much of, and it goes, both ways, and the pendulum swings as long as you're that you can be out something, whether it falls on you and leads to a lot of anxiety and rigidity through that, or falls on everyone else and leads to a lot of judgment and rigidity through that.
Well said. Well said. It's interesting because the bottle, um, I guess, example that you were using really makes me think, because it's interesting because if we're holding on to this thing, let's just say that the way I look at the world is what my brain is going to process. So if I look at the world in a certain way, like if I look at the world as a problem to solve, then my brain is always going to look for clues on how to solve that problem because I'm looking at the world that way. And so my brain is processing as such. My brain is trying to process whatever environment I am perceiving, right, to be the truth. And so if I perceive holding this cup to be the truth, to be the point, to be what life is all about, then the entirety of my experience is now a spectrum between holding this cup tightly or holding it loosely. And that is the entirety of my whole world. And my brain's always going to process whether to hold it tightly or loosely. I'm going to go back and forth between the two because I think that's what life is all about. It never occurring to me I could put the cup down as well. My whole life is the spectrum of tension, whether to be less tense or more tense. It never dawns on me I could just relax, that I can just let go. And that's that leap of insight. And it's because we're too busy getting caught up in the cave and the shadows on the wall. We don't recognize that that's all we've known and that there's more to life. There's more to life than self-judgment. There's more to life than the spectrum of identification, which will, again, be whether or not you're holding on real tight or holding on a little bit less. Because that's what it is, isn't it? The urge to think about yourself is a spectrum of how much you're holding on to that fiction, when the other alternative is just putting it down. You can't see it if you're just looking at how important it is to hold on to the fiction, even a little bit.
Oh man, I like that example a lot. Like that definitely hits. And it's like everyone walking around holding a cup, looking at the cup, measuring, and not even because it's not even measuring how tense or relaxed people are. Like that's not our measurement system for the most part with society. It's how big the cup is, which just gets harder to hold. It's like my cup's really big and then it takes, 2 hands to hold it maybe, or then you got to hold the whole thing with your whole body, and then there's no movement whatsoever. And so, yeah, huh. The willingness, I guess. Yeah, fuck, man, and like that's that's just thinking about yourself versus not. And it's like this whole like putting the cup down. It's like, but I've been holding the cup my whole life. I get. Does that mean I've been doing things incorrectly? It's like, no, 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 no. That's holding on to the cup tighter. It's like you can't have that. You can't even think, because like, and I've felt in sort of like, I don't know, when I'm not thinking about myself so much or a little bit more relaxed, there can be the thought of like, holy fuck, I've thought about myself a lot in my life. Was I, and then it's like immediately I'm back into like who's who's living life that way? Like my idea of myself, and so the thoughts that we go through, as we were talking about last week, require a thinker. It's like fucking weirdly uncomfortable to not have something to mull over. It's like I it's more comfortable because it's like what I've always done to mull over stuff. And then and it's like, it's not to say that that's easy, but it's like, because then there's the discomfort at looking at reality here and now, when there aren't the thoughts. Like our thoughts are distractions from just looking at the things we don't want to look at, basically. Whether it's about ourselves or about the world or about, the way things are. Like our thoughts, that then it's like as soon as we're convinced that, it's like we're holding on to the cup. And if we think that's correct and the right way to do things, then yeah, it's just that spectrum of how tightly or loosely you're holding it. And that's not even where we're at. Like the thought of loosening it isn't even a priority at all. It's like almost how tightly in a lot of ways. And anyone who comes over and says like, yeah, but you don't know that. It's like telling someone you don't have to hold on so tightly, like, "Whoa," and then they get all angry and judge you. But huh.
Yeah, because the cup is full of happiness to them. Like that's the whole point. It's not just a cup, damn it. This cup is the all and everything. It's the fucking holy grail. If I let this go, life is nothing because I'm not thinking about it and measuring my value. Right? But that's it. There's so much on the line with this cup because the cup is the idea of ourselves. Right? We don't understand that we can just set it aside. Like we've had somebody in the comment section just going off, obviously feeling super threatened by just the conversation as a whole, and it's probably mystifying to them that nobody cares. Like nobody cares, and the reason is because I have nothing to defend. I have nothing to defend, nor do I know you enough to worry about your opinion, right? But look how much weight you're carrying around, where you're actually choosing to go about your day moment to moment and just spew toxicity for the sake of desperately trying to feel better about yourself. You're not even going out and actually establishing any relationships. You're not doing anything of value. You're just spinning your wheels, thinking about yourself, lashing out at everybody else so that way you can have a way to feel better just through all of your assumptions. And it's sad because nothing that was said here could possibly be that threatening to you that you need to act like such a child. So you were already threatened. And that is sad that you live in such a state where everything threatens you if it's not immediately validating you. And that weight does not have to be there. You can just suck it up, shut the fuck up, sit down, learn something, and let life continue on without you kicking and screaming like a fucking baby just because you can't find some happiness in yourself. And see, that's the whole point. You could do this all day long. You could be sitting here in front of me trying to tear me down. Go nuts by all means, because it doesn't do anything because there's nothing for you to tear down. Anything that you could tear down would have to be something that I find important. Do you think I find it important how you see me through the lens of your own self-loathing? Do you think that that distorted image of me has any importance in my life at all? And the question is, why does everybody else perception of you? Why does their perception bother you so much? And it's because you're self-involved and you're feeding this toxicity and going through it. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here. I appreciate what you're expressing, whether you realize you're expressing it or not. We can all resonate with the pain that you're going through and don't want to come to terms with.
Well said. Because when you're left with that, and it's so interesting, like the extreme of judgment to the point that someone like makes fun of someone else, like the state you got to be in to to do that, and like to point like you got to be so insecure, like so unbelievably insecure and rigid and tense. It's like it's almost kind of mind-blowing the state someone has to be in to do that, and yet it's, like, not that uncommon just because we do so like, that isn't that crazy of a thing to do, but, like, when you sit with it and realize, like, how vulnerable you're being when you're judging someone else or making fun of someone else, it's unbelievably vulnerable how much you're expressing how insecure and tense and rigid and scared and afraid you are. But like, because most of the time someone else is like, oh, that makes me, oh, why'd you say that? It's like you have an impact. So when you don't, it's like, oh, man, and then you're kinda left with yourself until you just, probably leave and then go judge someone else and just like, "It sucks. Yeah, what a loser. Oh, you look like dumbass." Like, oh my god, but, like and to see and, like, the realization even that, like, people aren't really people and everyone's symbolic of a given mentality, like, the mentality and state of being you have to be in to make fun of someone that you don't know is just wild. Like, the amount of, like, the fucking cup shit, you wanna talk about the cup shit? It's squeezing it until it's like, you wanna fucking break it, and then it's of course, there's gonna be the lashing out because 'cause you're so it's like it starts cracking, and that's just you, like, "Ah, I hate myself so much, and everyone else is wrong," and, like, oh, man, it's like it's such an extreme. And then as that plays out or it's validated by someone else, it's like it just grows from there. But and so in response, all you can do is, be like, "Are you okay? Like, are you good? Like, we're just hanging out." Like, yo, it's like imagine just doing that, like running into a room. Imagine if things like this and people discount like social media because it's like there's this seeming buffer, but imagine going into a room and just starting to yell and like picking one person and scream at him. People would be like, "What's going on right now? Like, what is happening?" Like I've had two people on some of my Instagram stuff just like continuously every video just like shitting on me, and it's like, oh my god, like, are you okay? Maybe smoke a joint and just like take a deep breath or a couple deep breaths. But it's yeah, it's just oh man, it's funny. It's
But only when you realize it's not a threat. Isn't it isn't it incredible that your brain will back up however you perceive the world and you will process things accordingly. So if you're defending an idea of yourself, your brain's going to defend you from threats. It's going to perceive threats if you value that identity, if you value that idea of yourself. That's why all your thoughts are so goddamn important. Is because the idea of you is important. The thoughts aren't the problem, you see. The thoughts just back up the environment that you are perceiving yourself to be a part of, which is that it's all about the goddamn cup. When in fact, the cup was something you learned to pick up. It did not exist for you at one point. You learned to pick it up. And you can pick it up whenever you want, but it's not mandatory all the time. And you can only recognize that if you're willing to question What's in the cup? Is it the happiness you're seeking? Or is it an empty cup that you're not willing to look inside because you're betting everything on what's in there? Like, no, no, I know it's gold. I know it's riches, it's success, it's value, it's love, it's all of this stuff. I know. I just got to hold on to this cup. It's like, look inside, keep looking. And what you'll find is that it's never, ever, ever going to be anything other than a fucking empty cup. All it is, it just gives you comfort because it gives you a sense of purpose, a sense that now I'm doing something. Look, I'm not just standing here in my life. I got a fucking cup. I gotta protect this cup. I gotta hold on to this cup. I gotta show it to other people and compare it to other cups. See, it's a sense of control. Because the alternative is just living your fucking life cupless.
Oh man, dude, that's this cup thing is getting me. Like, and realizing how much it's like it's like school is like learning how to grip your cup, learning how to think about your cup. It's just like, imagine, like, we're born and then it's just like cup holding school. Like that, it's like, here's your cup. You do things to paint it, and it's like that's the one thing everyone does, and there's like variations from that. But as we grow up, it's just like the cup. Everyone's
What
looking
kind
at
of
the
cup do you
cup.
want? What kind of cup do you want to have when you get older?
Exactly. Exactly. Holy fuck, dude. It's like that's, and then it's, you know, decorating the cup, focusing on the cup. Like I'm picturing like a pottery class someone goes to, but it's like that's the only thing that exists in reality is just that. And that's the whole focus. That's the whole entire focus, is it just like Plato's cave, staring at the wall. It's like we learn how to pick up the cup, and it's kind of like, it's like, oh, I don't even know. Hypothetically, this is an entirely hypothetical situation, obviously, but like, it's like tough to pick up the cup at first, or we learn how to pick it up, and that's almost like learning how to tense, like learning how to be rigid. And so when we're young, it's like we go back and forth a lot between being relaxed and being tense. And so there's variations of how we learn to be tense, how we learn that, like, not holding on to the cup isn't safe almost. It's like, you do something and then you get embarrassed, and then it's like that's a component of like learning how to hold on to the cup, or just, and because as kids you're very relaxed, like you're so relaxed that you're like, you know just goofy and silly all the time. And then throughout we learn ways that, like, we can't do that, and that is living without so much of a cup. And then, like, through, it's not just, you know someone's teaching you how to, but it's like through things that we go through in a world where people are convinced that holding on to your cup, they're going to want to do things to convince you that holding on to the cup is correct. That's the right thing to do. Better hold on to your cup. Better have it, grip it tightly. You don't want to drop that cup, and dropping the cup, that's just relaxing more and more. And so there's an aversion to relaxing, like, even, yeah, and there's like a stigma against relaxing. Like, I think the term lazy has been a big way to, like, create a stigma around being relaxed. And it's wild because you you can do so much more, but it doesn't match the existing system world in the same way. Like, there is crossover, of course, and like doing, like thinking about flow state, it's like you get a lot of things done, but then as soon as it's like, as you're holding the cup and doing it for the cup, it's like it's really hard to do both. And that's what you're saying before. It's like the spectrum of how tightly or how loosely we're holding the cup, but it's within the assumption that everyone's got to hold on to their cup.
And that's why it's so goddamn challenging when you are putting down the cup. Like when you stop giving such a fuck about what everybody thinks about you and how you're perceived and all that control and all of that, what's going to happen in the future and what you think happened in the past and all that stuff. You're just being yourself. You're just talking. You're just in the conversation, as it were. And you're not constantly looking for threats. You're not constantly trying to build yourself up. You're not constantly trying to tear people down. So you're just alive. But you're cupless. And everybody else around you who is still maintaining their grip on their cup, because again, it's the path to happiness. This is what we do. We hold our cup. They're just looking at you going, where's your cup? And then they come up with reasons that you don't have a cup. And those reasons are almost always dependent on how much they value having a cup. So in other words, if having a cup is the most important thing in the world to them, then you are a lazy, useless piece of shit that doesn't want to be part of society, doesn't want to contribute anything to anyone. You don't care about social harmony, and you don't care about the collective because you don't have a cup. I, on the other hand, value this cup because, and it's because of that I do all of those things, because the cup equals all of those things. Right? And that's it. And the other people who are just like, yeah, I don't know, I'm getting kind of tired of this cup. And they see you without a cup, they're like, you don't need a cup. It's like, I can just take this piece of shit and throw it. It's like, yeah, you can. And that's really all it comes down to. Is recognizing that just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean it's the only thing to do. It's just that we've gotten so caught up in looking to other people for direction that they've led us in directions that aren't helping. But we never cared. You see, that's the whole point. We're just like, we're going in a direction, progress. And that was it. Progress, which seems super ambiguous. You can make progress in a lot of different directions, and that can mean a lot of different things. But if you're making progress into a swamp, that's not really progress, right? And so we've just been wanting to follow, because there's got to be somebody who knows how to live. There's got to be somebody who knows how to master this cup, right? And so we look around and we look for people with shiny cups. We look for people with the cups that look the best. And we're like, they've got to have a better cup. And yet the same thing is true for them. There's nothing in the cup. It's all just superficial. It's nothing but fucking emptiness in there. Right? But we're like, yeah, the cup looks nice. It's got to be better than mine. If I had that cup, I'd be more, and it's just like, no, you'd still be a fucking pot standing there with an empty cup. Like that's, and so you can put that shit down. But again, if you're in a room full of people holding a cup, desperately believing in that cup, then the option of putting it down seems like sacrilege. Seems like a revolution in itself. And yet all you're doing is putting down the cup that you learned to pick up to begin with. Whereas everybody else in the room is just under the assumption that, no, we've always been holding this cup because it's been that goddamn long.
Whew. Yeah. God, I really am liking this cup analogy because, like, oh my God, it's so like when the focus becomes the cup, it's like all you see is cup. Like that's everything is based on, and it becomes so, and like the more we think it's important, the more important it gets, and the more fear there is of the cup. I like not looking a certain way, or the fear, and it's like, yeah, it's still within the cup, and so that's the assumption of the right way. Like how your cup looks is fucking irrelevant to you. It's like it's a cup, but like we hinder ourselves because we think like, yeah, it's like that's just the thing, but we're still capable of doing a bunch of stuff, and it's a lot easier to put down the cup. Like, and if we assume, like, because we don't want to look at the cup, but we assume that it's full, so it's almost like we're walking around like we don't want to spill the cup, so we never let loose, we never let go. It's like everyone's like I was just like fucking like shuffling around, and then someone comes around, they're just like, "Woo, I don't have a cup," and they're like, "Stop! I'm gonna spill my cup. You're gonna make me spill my cup. Don't make me spill my cup. It's very important that I." It's like, why can't you've never even taken a sip out of the cup. Like, why does it have to, why can't you spill? It's like, well, because that's what I was told, and everyone else isn't doing it. It's like, have they ever wondered what happens if they spill the cup or set it down or start, you know, and it's like that's letting loose with the cup in your hand is like letting it spill a little bit because it never actually meant anything. And but you can still hold on to the cup, but like you're getting there. It's at least it's not like, can't even move anymore. And then eventually you're like, maybe I don't need the cup at all. Maybe I don't need this anymore. But like the more important you think that cup is, the more keeping it steady is going to be, and that's so much of the rigidity. It's like you don't even move around. Like in a day, you'll cover like 3 square feet or something because it's so the importance put on not spilling your cup is so far and above everything else.
Yeah. It's funny when you look at it and you're just like, fuck, that's what I'm doing. I'm just fixated on this thing. And I'm so worried about it, like not being safe, that I'm at a crawl through my life. And that's it. You could be living, you could be changing, you could be going through all that, but you're stagnating it for the sake of holding on to something that will ultimately never fulfill you, but will sap the life out of every fucking moment of your existence, so long as you have to pay attention to it. Can you imagine if you actually had a cup and you were walking around all the time and you just never stopped? You never looked away from the cup. Like you were just looking at the cup, everything else was periphery. Could you imagine how hard it would be to get through your day, to get to the bus, to get to your car, to drive your car, to work, to talk to a person? Because remember, you're looking at the cup the whole time. Okay, so it's not that you can't do these things, it's just that it would be very challenging. And that is exactly what we're doing when we're staring at the idea of ourself. Everything else is periphery. We are walking through our life staring at this fiction of ourself and interacting with people as a consequence afterwards, as a, like in terms of the ripple after the focus on that stupid fiction of ourself, on that stupid cup. So of course we sound distracted. Of course we're not listening to people. Of course we're missing things. Of course, because we're fixated on something that's not real, that can never actually be the all and everything of living. That all it does is give us false certainty, because that cup acts as a fucking security blanket.
Oh man. And like that's straight up what it is. Like you're just missing life and you can stare at yourself for a multitude of reasons. Just think about yourself, how you're doing. And it's just looking at that cup. And it's like you can. You can live your life staring at a cup your whole life. It's kind of a silly way to spend that time, but there's just been this conviction that like that's the right way. And at least like if I am afraid of not knowing, if I'm afraid of being uncertain, then I'll take anything. Like I'll take anything that's the quote unquote right way. And like that's kind of we're all like, well, at least I know this. At least I know this is the right way. It's like, why? Well, everyone else is doing it. Fucking terrible argument. Like that's the argument I've gotten that argument before for Catholicism. It's like, well, what? You think 8 billion people or 1 billion people or whatever are wrong? It's like, I mean, it's like there's other options. I'm not
It's
saying
not
they're
impossible.
like, yeah, and, like, the fact that that's where you point is, like, that's exactly what you do when you have no good reason to do it. Like, there's no good reason to keep holding on to the cup besides it's being something that you've always done, and you look around, and that's all you see people doing. Like, that's what most people are doing, and so that's all it is. It's not about convincing someone to put down their cup. It's just putting the cup down yourself so that when they do occasionally maybe peak, it's like, oh, there's someone else. They're not. Like, that's all you can that's the extent you can do and just live that way without looking at the cup quite so much.
It's just a cup. It's just a tool. That's all it is. Like, it's not, the promised land. It's never going to be a silver bullet. It's never going to be a pathway to happiness. It's just a tool. It's just a tool that if you take it too seriously will ruin your life. And that's the whole thing about thinking about yourself. You can, and it can help to some degree to take in all of the perceptions that are floating through your magical brain. But it is very, very important to understand that your brain is always processing things according to how you see the world. So if you see the world as a reflection of you in it, then you are holding on to that cup. The only way to let it go is to let go of that idea of you in the world and to just be the world, just to be yourself, because it's the fiction of you that is the cup, and you're going to use it, and it's going to change form, and it's going to change look, and you're going to love it sometimes, you're going to hate it sometimes. The whole point is that it's not a shackle. You're not shackled to your cup. Nobody's glued it to your hand. It's not something that you must toil with all the time. But it really just comes down to recognizing two things: that it's not that important, and that you learn to pick it up. Now, if you can take that in, then you'll find your way back, find your way to putting it down. That's really it. It's just being willing to question it, question the importance of that stupid fiction of yourself, and remember that you learned it, that it's not part of existence in itself. It's not something that's built in. It's something that we learn through conceptualization. We learn through language. We learn through the perception of division. But when we got here, we were just here. When we were children, we were just here. And we remain just here, focused on a fiction. This has been a fun episode. A lot of fun. We're going to continue on in like 17 minutes. We still got 2 minutes left here. So I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Again, we have a video contest. Make a video. If you want to come and join us in California for our mini retreat, we would love to see you. Even if you don't and you win the contest, you can donate that ticket. We can give it to somebody in the community who hasn't been able to afford to get to one of these retreats or never thought that they could, right? We've actually had fundraising for retreat tickets in the past. In our Netherlands retreat, specifically, I'm thinking about one person who managed to use GoFundMe to raise the funds for their retreat ticket. So that was great. The community is always willing to help. So if you make a video, post it to our Discord in the Dualistic Unity channel, and then everybody in the community who sees it will be happy to go and check that out and give it a like and maybe a retweet and a share or whatever platform you're posting it on. We're always willing to help support. So it's a lot of fun to come to these retreats. It really is just a chance to sit down, again, cupless, and kind of just laugh about life, look at the absurdity of how seriously we took that fucking cup, and then go back into the world recognizing that it's optional and having a little bit of time to actually take that in. So join us at one of the retreats, or definitely join us for the video contest, or join us in 15 minutes on Patreon. What I'm saying is join us.
Join us, damn it. Only if you feel like it. But we're just hanging. We're just having a grand old time. But that's gonna, yeah, the cup one. That's good. Like when it comes up, it's like, yeah, I'm staring at my cup again. Looking at my cup. Put that down. Because you can, like, even if someone asks, say hypothetically, it's like, what's your cup doing? And it's like you left it back at the house or something. It's like, it's back at the house, it's collecting some dust, and they're like, oh, why is it doing it? Well, because I'm here. Like, the cup's over there. I just didn't feel like bringing it with me because it's not that important to me. It's like, your cup's not important to you, but cups are so important. The cup is the most important thing. Like, and that's all that. Oh man, yeah, fucking cups, man, going cupless. That could be some merch too, some way, shape, or form.
That really could. We've got some good merch for sure, because we've described Dualistic Unity in a number of ways. Like widening the hole that you're looking through. Dualistic Unity, widening your hole. That'd be good merch. But again, in context, otherwise people would be like, what is this podcast about exactly? Anyway, we're going to end here. I want to give a quick shout out to the person that I was talking about earlier in the comment section. I know you're likely not still here, but I am appreciative for you being here nonetheless. It was perfect timing because it's important that we talk about these things. And frankly, you inspired a whole conversation. So we really appreciate you being here. You may not know that you're serving a purpose, but you are. You may not know that you're contributing in a positive way, but you are. So keep that in mind. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We will see you in 15 minutes on Patreon or Christmas Eve. We're going to be recording an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw on Christmas Eve at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We're also going to have a Tier 2 and a Tier 3 group on Christmas Eve. So if you'd like to chat with us on Christmas Eve, do a little bit of celebration with us, definitely join us. We'd love to see you there. That's it for me. Talk to you soon.